Hello and welcome to the F1 in Schools 2021 Regional Finals for London South. My name's Mark, I'll be hosting the show today alongside my esteemed colleague and our Master of Measurements, Mr. Nelson Vale. Nels, welcome to the studio.
Hello everyone.
Wow, what a fun-packed show we've got coming up for you guys today. Let's take a quick look at what is coming up. So first things first, Nels, of course, like we do in a real regional final, this is real, we just haven't got the teams here in person. We're going to meet the teams and I think we're also going to hear from them as well.
Oh, perfect.
It should be very exciting. We've got a little message of support from a former competitor turned judge about life after F1 in schools, just to find out how this experience has shaped their life. We've got in the studio, we're very, very privileged to be joined by a studio expert, Nelson. Our very own on-hand regional, national and world finalist for F1 in schools, here to give their expert opinion on the work of the teams. And Nels, the big one that I know you've been waiting for.
Racing!
The racing, absolutely. Now, next time round, we're going to be doing the awards ceremony, but today is all about the racing, the teams, and finding out what has been going on behind the scenes in F1 in schools this season. So exciting times now. It's got a lot coming up in this show. Now, if you're just sat there at home wondering what all the fuss is about, what is F1 in schools, it sounds great, but I don't really know what it's all about yet. If this is maybe your first season involved, then here's a little quick video just to show you a little bit more.
What is F1 in schools?
F1 in Schools is a global STEM challenge, working with industry partners to provide an exciting and challenging educational experience. A group of 3 to 6 students form a team, think of a name, allocate job roles, and start to design their miniature Formula 1 car of the future. The teams follow a systematic engineering design process to manufacture and race their cars, making sure they comply with a comprehensive set of technical regulations. To do this, they use professional CAD software, like Autodesk Fusion 360, and manufacture their car components using CNC machines. Once the cars are painted and assembled, they take to the track to race. Powered by compressed gas along a 20-metre racetrack, the cars are capable of speeds over 75 km per hour. The racing is fast and exciting, but there is more to the challenge, as it inspires learning not only in STEM subjects, but wider skills including project management, marketing, teamwork, innovation and communication. These wider skills are assessed by judges from education and industry. At competitions, the teams submit their cars and portfolios and also give a project presentation. F1 in Schools operates globally from ages 9 to 19, with teams taking part in school, regional and national level competitions. With the winners progressing at each stage, only the very best make it through to the World Finals. F1 in Schools is a life-changing experience for all involved, with many success stories of competitors who've come through F1 in Schools and have gone on to achieve significant outcomes in their lives. For some, that means working in Formula 1, where the experience of F1 in Schools serves as the ideal grounding for the challenges and demands of elite-level competition.
Lovely to see a little explainer there on F1 in schools. I mean, Nelson, it's amazing to see all the work that's gone in from the teams this year in such a difficult run-up to these events.
Well, we normally would be in 2 white vans running like 2 idiots around the country. Yeah. But the most important, Mark, is that despite all the adversity, all the barriers, all the obstacles that these troubled times have given us, the teams have proved from all around the country, and especially in London South now, that they could overcome those difficulties, those barriers. I mean, it didn't matter if the school was closed or the lab was closed. They were engaging via Zoom or throughout other channels like Teams or any other ways that they could communicate, and the work continued. And they managed to manufacture their cars, they managed to finish their portfolios, even their verbal presentations, and they managed to submit everything for the judges.
Yeah.
And that's absolutely amazing. And there's only one thing that we can actually say, that it's a massive congratulations. And a round of applause?
Oh, I think it's deserved, Nelson, absolutely. From everyone here in the studio, massive well done. Yeah, everybody behind the cameras clapping as well. What a superb effort in such difficult times, as Nelson was saying, to have not just so many, pieces of work submitted, but so many teams submitting those pieces of work. It's not just been a handful of teams. We've got quite a lineup in the London South Regional Finals. Nelson, should we take a look at the teams and see who's competing in this event? Let's do it.
Go for it.
So here they are. This is how they line up on the grid then. So working from the top, Nelson, we've got the perfect lap.
We have Carver 21,
We've got Vortex Racing,
F1 Outlaws,
Speed,
Mako Racing,
Fusion,
Tecton 1K,
Tecton Wonic. We've got Phantom.
Protonic,
We have Peregrine,
Eclipse,
Obsidian,
Typhoon Racing,
Impulse Racing,
Golden Motorsport,
Pulsar,
Imperium,
and last but not least, Hexa Racing. Nelson, that was us doing our kind of impassioned but relatively rubbish version of introducing the teams. At the regional finals, it's so much more fun when we can see the teams and hear them, you know, yeah, it's us, Hexa Racing. Sorry, Hexa, if that was you. But should we actually hear from the teams, Nels?
oh, can we?
I believe we can hear from the teams. Let's hear it from those teams.
We are Team Tectonic.
We are Team Phantom.
We are Team Protonic.
Hi, we're Peregrine.
We're from St. Joseph's College.
And we're Team Eclipse.
Hello, we're Team Obsidian from St. Joseph's Reading.
And we're Typhoon Racing.
And we're Team Impulse Racing.
Sponsored by Bellhammer and Motobuild Racing.
We are the perfect lap.
Hello, we are Carver 21. Hello, we are Vortex Racing.
Hello, we are F1 Outlaws.
Hello, we are Team Speed, which stands for
St.
Pools.
Extreme.
Engineering Department.
Yay!
Hello, we are Mako Racing.
Hello,
We are from St. Joseph's, and this is Team Fusion.
Hi, we're Team Pulsar.
From Robert May School, we are Imperium.
Lovely to see the teams there, Nels. As we said, in such a difficult year, and of course we know what goes on behind the scenes. So much on top of just the cars being done by the teams.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just about the car, it's about all the work that it's required by F1 in schools. So teams are actually preparing a whole marketing strategy, and they're developing their own project management for all the tasks that they do. So they are submitting a verbal presentation, lots of documents, and a very special car.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to find out a little bit more about some of the work the teams have done later on in the show. But Nelson, because obviously, you know, we're missing out on this cultural experience that we normally have of driving around the UK, as you say, in our glorious white vans, you know, for 3 months to put on the regional finals. I think we're missing out a little bit on the, you know, the culture of where we're heading. So we've obviously not been to Wales this year, not been to Scotland. We've not broken out of the north this year.
I miss you always pointing out, oh Nelson, have you ever seen that? And you ever seen that? Or tasted this? I really miss that.
Well, Nelson, don't worry about it, because you don't have to miss it. I bought you a present. I bought you a little present. This is a beautiful glass as well, which I thought you'd appreciate, with some pink flamingos on. This is a bottle of something that they have in the south, and it is a delicious, feisty, spiced tomato mix drink. I think in the north, I think we spray this on our chips and call it ketchup, but in the south, they treat this as a delicacy actually, and it's drunk over ice. I believe it's vegan, potentially even gluten-free, and it's one of your 5 a day, Nelson. So not just healthy and a bit hipster, but also delicious. Now the trick is here to shake the sediment from the glass. This, of course, is produced in the glorious Garden of England down in the south. Now, so this is from fresh tomatoes grown in the region of London South. I'm not really sure how much is too much, but I'll give you more than perhaps I'd pour myself, just for the sake of it. Now, there you go. Have a little sipple on that. Let's just see what you make of it.
Cheers.
I mean, other drink brands are available, but of course this is, you know, a reminder of where we could have gone, made with British tomatoes. What do you make of it?
It's spicy.
Is it spicy? Excellent.
Spicy. I don't know about the cold side of it. I mean, warm, kind of a little delicious tomato soup.
Why don't you leave it out through the duration of the show, because of course it is about 45 degrees in the studio, and just give us some updates, give us some tasting notes as the show progresses, if those tomatoes just yield a little bit more sweetness as the show goes on. In terms of yielding more sweetness as our show goes on though, going to bring in the sweetness at this point, and it is our studio guest, the one and only, our studio expert, Nelson, Mr. Lawrence Vines. Lawrence, welcome to the studio. Great to have you here. Are you excited to be here?
Oh, so excited. We get to the biggest regionals of the season, so I'm sure there are some great cars and some great racing that's going to come up.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Lawrence, it's great to have you here. I mean, for anybody that's sat at home going, Lawrence Vines, I know the name, but where exactly does he fit into the grand scheme of F1 in schools? Lawrence, just give us a little bit of your backstory in F1 in schools.
Okay, so I started competing in F1 in schools in 2017 in the regional finals in the professional class with Centurion Racing, and we slugged away for 3 years. We were finding those little margins, improving our car, our documentation, and finally in 2019 we made it to the World Finals, where we really surprised ourselves and came third, which was just an amazing experience.
Lawrence, I don't think you surprised any of us. We were absolutely expecting you to do brilliantly in the World Finals. But I mean, take us back to that moment then, when you kind of stepped off the plane and realised that this isn't just a regional or a national finals. We've now joined the world's elite of F1 in schools. We're competing here under the eyes of F1 themselves, at a racetrack, on a race weekend build-up. I mean, what was that feeling like as a competitor?
Oh, it was incredible. I mean, not just in terms of the teams, and there were 55, which was more than we'd ever competed against, and of a quality unlike anything before either. But the magnitude of everything in Abu Dhabi, it was an amazing experience, yes.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly made a mark on our memories, doesn't it, Nelson? I think it took about 5 years off our life expectancy as well, but that is another thing altogether. Lawrence, I know you've been taking a closer look at the team's work, so we are going to come back to you throughout the show to find out a little bit more about the work of the teams. Now, Nelson, we're going to talk about it as we go through the racing, but obviously F1 in schools is split into 3 different classes. Now, just in case you were sort of sat at home wondering exactly what that's all about, here's a quick video just to explain the class structure of F1 in schools. Formula 1 in schools is split into 3 classes of entry. Entry class, development class and professional class. Think of these as stepping stones, much like Formula 3, Formula 2 and Formula 1.
At regional finals, entry, development and professional class teams compete alongside each other.
They share a few things in common in the competition.
For example, the competition format, which is the same for all classes. They all get the same time on track, with 4 races each.
The judging categories are the same, albeit some of the assessables vary in size. Where they differ, the technical regulations set out for each class.
Entry, development and professional class designed to different rules. Awards categories are slightly different, so teams get the chance to fight for awards in their own class. And progression opportunities to the UK national finals and beyond differ for each class. In entry class, teams are awarded points in 6 areas: scrutineering and aesthetics, design and engineering, a verbal presentation, a research mission to find out what's next in F1 in schools, and the points for racing. A grand total of 480 points are up for grabs in entry class. Development and professional teams are awarded points in 7 areas, encompassing the design process and marketing activities needed to get to F1 in schools. A grand total of 970 points are available for all teams. Entry class is the ideal starting point for F1 in schools for 11 to 14-year-olds for 1 year only. In entry class, teams compete for the chance to be regional champions, for the privilege to be invited to the UK national finals as a special guest. There's no cost to entry, so the only financial challenge to teams is to create their car. This must be manufactured in one of 3 ways. Either handmade using traditional workshop tools and skills from the F1 model block, 3D printed as a solid component part with just moving axles and wheels, or fully CNC machined using a 3D CAD file before being machined on equipment such as a Denford CNC router. Teams must produce a simple 5-page portfolio detailing the design and manufacture process of their car. A 5-minute verbal presentation to wow the judges with their journey as a team, and the option to create a team pit display for their area on race day.
Let's take a closer look at the dev class then, which is for 11 to 19-year-olds for 1 year only. Here cars are a step up from entry, but still some way short of the pro class rules.
Development class offers the first opportunity to progress to the World Finals. To get there, the team will need to become a UK national champion by making it through from the regional finals. There's a small charge of £75 to enter. Teams must make 1 CNC manufactured race car, 2 5-page portfolios, engineering drawings, a 5-minute verbal presentation, and a purpose-built marketing pit display.
The professional class represents the highest tier of F1 in schools. Here, competitors from 11 to 19 years can compete for as many years as they wish.
with the ultimate goal to arrive at the F1 in Schools World Finals. Assessables are much the same as development class, but the Pro class have 2 10-page portfolios to produce. The top teams from both regional and national finals get the chance to progress for the ultimate dream of competing at the F1 in Schools World Finals. Let's take a look at the cars then, side by side. In F1 in Schools, entry development to professional class cars share lots in common, but they also differ in some crucial ways. Let's start with weight. Entry class must start at 65 grams minimum, where development class get a small advantage from having a 60 gram minimum. Professional class can create the lightest cars with just a 50 gram minimum weight. In entry class, teams must start with a no-go zone, a minimum volume for the chassis of the vehicle. This comprises of a basic shape that the teams design their aerodynamic structures around in an effort to create a safe but fast race car. Development class teams must use a slightly modified no-go zone, allowing a bit more freedom for design. The professional class must simply include a virtual cargo, a much smaller volume which allows for much more freedom with the aerodynamic surfaces. Both the entry class and the development class use a standard F1 in Schools wheel, whereas professional class get to design, test, modify and finesse their own custom wheels using any materials they see fit. Again, the entry and development class share a standard axle, while professional class can choose their own, with many teams choosing to run low friction bearings as well. All teams are powered by an 8-gram compressed air power pack. This, combined with the minimum weights, can lead to average speeds of 40 km an hour in entry class, up to 50 km an hour in the development class, and an eye-watering 75 km an hour in the professional class. Blink and you'll miss them as our teams race down the 20-metre F1 in Schools track, but will any team have what it takes to break the 1-second barrier?
Well, there it is, back to me in the studio. Nelson, has your esophagus recovered yet, or are you still feeling the tingle there?
Delicious drink.
Yeah.
It's actually inspired me to tell a joke. Do you want to hear a joke?
Oh no. Yeah. No, but yeah. Okay, go on. I think I know what it's going to be.
What does a CO2 canister say to another CO2 canister?
It is this one. What does a CO2 canister say to a CO2 canister, Nelson?
No?
Go on.
A CO2 canister says to the other CO2 canister...
That's it, isn't it?
Thank you, I know.
That is it. Yeah, he's here all day, folks. Sorry. You've no idea how many times he cracked that out in the van, and it was still met with, is that it? But yeah, you've reserved it, Nelson, for the biggest stage of all, our regional finals broadcast of 2021.
My faithful fans, I'm sure they enjoyed it.
Why don't you put it on TikTok? That'd go down a treat on TikTok.
Probably.
You can get that generic voiceover to read it out for you as well. That would make no sense whatsoever out of context. Nelson Vale, I think we're at the point of no return. We're about to go racing. So before we do that, we're going to talk the people at home exactly through how the racing format works. So Nelson, I'm going to hand to you, and if you can explain to people how exactly the cars are going to race.
So the cars race 4 times. They race twice in each of the lanes. So the lowest team number starts in lane 1, and we have a lane swap after race 2. Then there's no reaction times, we're not using any reaction times, so only automatic races, and any breakages are fixed by F1 in Schools judges.
And then crucially, Nelson, the race times are only for the awards of fastest car and best engineered if
they are compliant.
Yes, so fastest compliant car wins those awards. Lovely. Thank you, Nelson. Well, I think hopefully that's cleared up how the racing is going to work for people at home. And it is now indeed time to go racing. So Lawrence Vines, I believe you're in position over on the tech pad. The entry class teams are up first. So Lawrence, what have you picked out about the first 2 teams up on track, please?
So we're starting out with the Perfect Lap and Carvid 21. And I have to say, what I find really striking about the Perfect Laps car is these large logos. I'm really liking them. They stand out a lot. They also they look to be a little thick, maybe 2 or 3 mils. I'm wondering if that's kind of unintentional, but also with the point of that shield facing forwards. Maybe they have considered that too. Looks like a nice, robust car. I'm excited to see what kind of time that sets. So we've got our Carvid 21 car. It actually looks really compact. Short body, but wide track with the front and rear wheels with a massive gap between them. That should really help the car be stable down the length of the track. One thing I do notice about that car though is that it's 133 grams. So while they'll be hoping to set some really good consistent times, I don't think they'll be topping the leaderboard today. And just to remind you, in the entry class, teams are allowed to make the cars out of whatever they'd like to. So we can see that the perfect lap is made out of the F1 in Schools model block, as is mandatory in the development and professional class, whereas the Carvid car is 3D printed. And I'm just going to throw to Nelson here, because I think he has some tips about how you can get the weight down on those 3D printed bodies.
Thanks, Lawrence. And it's actually something that is really easy to miss by the teams when they are in the 3D printed process. So there's different ways that you can define a 3D printer to build your part. So they can build it basically solid with no gaps, just layer after layer after layer, or you can define the structure on the inside of the shape. So you can do kind of a honeycomb shape. So it creates gaps in the shape, so it becomes way more light.
So this is the infill, isn't it, on the 3D printed model? Almost a kind of hidden weight saving. So from the outside, the car would look exactly the same, but you have the option, usually with the 3D printer, don't you, Lawrence, that you can reduce that infill from solid to, like Nelson said, a kind of almost like a honeycomb finish. Well, it'll be interesting to see how they go on track. Lawrence, I know you pointed out a few of the differences between these cars. Nelson, are you ready in commentary position to talk us through race number 1?
Ready.
I think we're ready to hit the track. So for the first time in the London South Regional, let's head out there and see how the cars perform.
Right. Race number 1, the perfect lap in lane 1, Carvid 21 in lane 2. There they go. Understandable, quite a difference there, with a 1.547 for the perfect lap and a 2.610 for Carvid 21.
Yeah, not bad times really. I mean, Lawrence predicted, and I think absolutely spot on there, that the weight of the Carvid 21 car is just holding it back on track, and I think we'll probably see that as the races commence, that there is a performance difference between the two cars. Nelson, you mentioned it. Performance of the car in consistent terms is most important, really, isn't it? Why is that?
Yeah, it's not just about setting the fastest time, a unique fastest time. It's about winning against the other team on the other lane. It's about the average and the consistency of the 4 times. The fastest you can go, but consistently throughout the 4 races, that is the key for the points.
Yeah, definitely. And it also gives us a clue about the engineering integrity of your cars. If they can maintain that pace throughout the racing, despite the speed, then it's going to bode well for you in the points terms, not just in the racing, but also in the engineering and the scrutineering scores as well. Nelson, I think we're good to head out onto the track again, so here we are for race number 2.
Race number 2, still in the same lanes, the perfect lap in lane 1, Carvid 21 in lane 2. Lights off. And there we have it, with the perfect lap taking with a 1.535.
Okay.
And Carvid 21 with a 2.652.
Yeah, so again, consistent times between both cars. I mean, of course, at this point in the racing, as we explained before, the track guys are going to bring the cars back, swap the lanes over, and at this point, the cars will then race twice in the opposite lane. Lawrence, is there a reason we do that? I mean, the lanes surely should be the same, but sometimes teams think there's a marginal difference. I mean, is that a thing?
Well, in an ordinary non-COVID-19 affected year, the F1 in Schools track team would be travelling all over the country to your different regions to run these competitions, so the track does have to be portable, and it is reassembled at every event. So while the teams work incredibly hard to make sure that this track is identical in both lanes, there is that smallest chance that there could be a difference, and I know when teams see cars going fast in one lane, they might think that that lane's faster. So just to make sure there's absolutely zero doubt, each car will race twice in each lane.
Absolutely, thanks Lawrence. And it is worth saying as well, Nelson, that all the track equipment, the launch pods, the finish gates, the lines themselves, the tether guides, everything is calibrated, is set up, and is tested to be as equal as possible to within, a hundredth of a second as far as we can get. And the guys out there, they're not just the track team that are running these events, they run the primary class regionals, the secondary class regionals, of course, the national finals, and also the world finals. So these guys are as good as it gets. So yeah, the cars are going to be swapped over, and I think we're hearing from the track that we are ready to go again. So Nelson, back to you, and for race number 3.
So in race number 3, you notice now that the cars are in different lanes. So Carve 21 in lane 1, the perfect lap in lane 2, lights off, and there we have it with the perfect lap taking it with a 1.482, and Carve 21 very consistent time again with a 2.603.
Yeah, definitely. What we're seeing there, Nelson, I think is the Carve 21 car is absolutely consistent, race on race. Lawrence, the perfect lap seems to have almost gained some speed there. I mean, is this something that we can quite often see in the development class, that cars can speed up gradually as the racing progresses?
Definitely. So since these cars have been sent to us, they may not have raced for a few weeks, and it's actually possible that these may be brand new cars that have never raced at all. So to ease up those axles, it may take a few races just for them to ease up, maybe expand those holes just that tiny bit so that the movement's even freer, and that could be why we're seeing slightly faster times as the racing progresses from the perfect lap.
I might have just said development class by accident there. I think I probably need to go back and watch my own explainer video just to remember exactly that we are still indeed an entry class. So no confusion there, folks, from us. Nelson, I think we're ready to head back to the track then, and for the final time, it's race number 4.
Race number 4 for Carve 21 and the perfect lap. We're looking great on track, and lights off. There we have it with the perfect lap.
And the time flashed up so quickly.
We have it.
There
We have
it.
Our system had a moment there, but we have a 1.508 for the perfect lap and a 2.632 for Carve 21.
Which is a really good time again from perfect lap. Carve really consistent, just bang, 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 bang. Those points are going to be in the bag, and I think, Lawrence has given a bit of analysis there. I think we can all see that the weight is the real restricting factor there on that design. So definitely something to work on, Nelson, with your advice about maybe the infill on the 3D print for next year. Well, moving on to the next pair then. Lawrence, I think you've got some more information for us on the next 2 teams on track.
So these next 2 cars you can see are a very similar finish. They both appear to be exactly the same material as the previous car, although again they're actually both. Our first one is 20 grams lighter and our second one is a whole 50 grams lighter. So maybe they've noticed that weight was a bit too high to start with and just worked away with some hollow sections perhaps. Anyway, back to Vortex Racing, and I have to say, I don't think I've ever seen wheels back that far on an F1 in Schools car. They look almost alongside or behind the CO2 chamber. And that's a really interesting concept, because the wheels, when the car's racing, are spinning around, churning up that air and making it really turbulent. So, by putting it a bit behind where that CO2 chamber is, it shouldn't affect the flow from there. So there's a chance that will help them. Obviously, F1 Outlaws, they're slightly less heavy, and they have a really interesting kind of triple wing design. It looks like the back of an aeroplane to me. So I'm excited to see these guys race. Let's see if they fly.
Yeah, absolutely. Nice little pun there, Lawrence, as well. I mean, you're right. That is an extraordinary looking car, the Vortex Racing car. Lawrence, you've mentioned it. I don't want to go into too much detail right now about it, but you mentioned before about the pitching of the cars when they launch initially. I mean, what do we think would potentially happen with the Vortex car when it of course sets off and you get that initial launch and surge of power from the canister?
Well, it's hard to say actually, because I don't think I've ever seen a car where I'd say that the CO2 canister was actually in front of the rear wheels. I think it may be a more stable car, and that wheelbase, 150mm long, we've seen some cars shorter than that.
Yeah.
So I think it actually could be really stable. I expect this car to be good at the start of the race.
Oh, interesting. Right, so Lawrence has put his money on Vortex in the first initial phase of the race. I think we'll explain a bit more about the phases as we go through the competition. But let's head now, Nelson, out onto the track and let's find out if our punditry has been accurate with race number 1.
So race number 1 with Vortex Racing in lane 1 and F1 Outlaws in lane 2. Waiting for the lights off, and we have it with F1 Outlaws taking it with a 1.029 and Vortex Racing with a 2.06.
Yeah, I mean, Lawrence, just to pick up on what you're saying there, the Vortex car seems to have reached the split gate despite the fact that it's got that fairly significant weight difference in over the Outlaws. I think, was it about 40 grams merely? 40 grams. It's not been that far behind at the first split gate. But before, Nelson, just before we go any further, the split gate, what is that for people at home?
So the split gate is something that any team can get with their track equipment, and that's used to actually try and measure at a specific point of the track who is the car arriving first into that split gate. Because then we have another gate by the end of the track that logs and registers the car that arrived and won the race. What happens is sometimes the car that passes the split gate first, it's not the one who wins.
Interesting. So we've got to keep our eyes peeled for genuine overtaking happening in F1 and schools. Well, we'll keep our eyes on this as the racing progresses and perhaps get some of Lawrence's thoughts on why those things are happening if we do see it. But Nelson, in the meantime, we're going to head back to you and back to the track once again. So Nels, over to you.
Right, with Vortex Racing in lane 1 and F1 Outlaws in lane 2, lights off. And we have F1 Outlaws taking it with a 1.652 against a 2.104 of Vortex Racing.
Interesting. Okay, right. So that was race number 2, I believe. At this point, of course, the guys on track are bringing the cars back, swapping those lanes over.
The lanes.
Making sure that everything's fine. I think, Nelson, we're not hearing anything in our ears troubling from the track, are we? I think everything's...
Nope.
Everything's set, yep, all good. We've got thumbs up from the track guys. The cars are in one piece, which again is a thumbs up and a quality stamp on the engineering there for the teams. And we're ready to head out for race number 3.
Race number 3. Now you can see F1 Outlaws now in lane 1 and Vortex Racing in lane 2. Lights off. And there we have it with just a few seconds for the system to update the times. F1 Outlaws with a 1.625 against a 2.107 of Vortex Racing.
Yeah, there it is. Interesting times.
If you look at the screen, you can see that perfectly balanced wing on top of the deceleration system, so avoiding any possibility of breakage.
That's a really good spot, actually, Nelson. And Lawrence, I want to just throw to you at this point, because obviously we see there that the Outlaws car has that wing just pitched, you know, above the brushes, and we probably, you know, we'd like to think that that's an intentional thing. Do the teams, and did you indeed as a competitor, were you trying to avoid those brushes with the elements of your car, or was it very much kind of, we're going to go for outright performance and just cross our fingers that it crosses the line in one piece?
Well, I think definitely very heads-up design work from the F1 Outlaws, because obviously the way the racing is scored, you're not just scored for your fastest time, so it doesn't cut it if you just get out the blocks really fast, get that first time, but then you're not able to finish another race because your car's broken. So that's definitely very sensible. From the perspective of designing a car myself, I think you always put your first thought is into getting this optimum design, and then unfortunately to say, I think after your first round of testing you maybe have a few bloopers, cars coming apart, and you have to go back to the drawing board a bit. You can either adapt your design, maybe add some more support, change the material, or in fact go for a different, more sturdy design.
Right. Lawrence, I don't know if you can just quite hear us over the din in the F1 in Schools factory here. We must explain, folks, we're coming to you live here from the F1 in Schools HQ in West Yorkshire, where, of course, Nelson, all the F1 equipment is made out there for the teams.
Tracks are being made, CNC machines are being made, everything's being made downstairs by our equipment specialists to get those equipments ready to go for you guys in schools.
Absolutely, yeah. Lawrence, I just wanted to ask you one more final question on that, which was, of course, your car is sat there in front of the TV. This was the car that you designed for the World Finals. Lawrence, did that car survive the brushes at the World Finals?
At the World Finals, I'm pleased to say that this car did survive the brushes, despite actually being the maximum width allowed, so really feeling their full force and decelerating really quickly. I can't quite say the same for its brothers and sisters, our development cars, which they're finished in more pieces than they started, but you can see this rear wing that's caught by the brushes, we lost that a few times. But to fix that, we added this extra support under the car, which meant that it just couldn't be pulled back until at the point at which the material snapped.
Oh, a lot of thinking, a huge amount of refinement I think goes into that. Well, it'd be interesting to see how the teams do, and it'd be interesting to see as well which teams have kind of factored in the brushes into their design work, or taken the risky Vines approach of we're going to go for out and out speed and then try and scoop it all up when it goes wrong at the end. But great to hear that your final design did actually cut the mustard there, Lawrence. Well, Nelson, I think we're ready to go back to the track for the final time, I think, and race number 4. Here it is.
So race number 4 between F1 Outlaws in lane 1 and Vortex Racing in lane 2. with all the lights going off. And then we have it with a 1.648 for F1 Outlaws and a 2.141 for Vortex Racing. So Vortex very consistent there, but a lot of margin to improve.
Yeah, definitely, and well done to both teams there. 2 solid performances, no breakages whatsoever. So yeah, mega plaudits there for lasting and standing the test of the track at the end there. Now, of course, we've talked about the engineering a lot, and we've talked about the cars, we've talked a bit about, you know, what the teams do behind the scenes, but of course a huge amount of effort, energy, and often nerves go into those verbal presentations. So just in case you were wondering a little bit about those verbals, here's a quick explainer on how they're judged.
Quite often the most daunting area of the assessment, teams produce a verbal presentation to deliver to a panel of judges. Here they're graded on technique, composition and subject for a total of 180 points. The judges are looking for strong visuals, contribution from all team members, the team's ability to capture the room with dynamism and energy, and engagement with those listening. Judges are looking for how well the team clarifies the concept and how well their presentation sticks to the time allowed. For subject, they're graded on innovation, collaboration, and the learning experiences that they've gained from F1 in schools. The verbal presentation is a multimedia content production. For regional finals, it's 5 minutes, and for national finals, a 10-minute presentation. Judging a verbal presentation takes a trained ear and a skilled communicator. Our professional judges represent companies from across industry, where quite often communicating an idea is the key to success.
Yeah, there it is, verbal presentations. Now, so I want to just take you back because there was a scene in that video where I think there was a familiar face or the back of a familiar head in one of those seats. Was that you, Nelson?
That was me in 2014 in Abu Dhabi, having the immense pleasure of judging an American team with one of the best verbal presentations I ever seen. But getting to the point, the verbal presentation is quite an intense moment for the teams. I mean, you have 10 minutes to showcase all of your communication skills with using the content that you have been producing, speaking about your car, speaking about your team identity, all of your sponsors. There are different strategies going on here. So in primary class and in entry class, sometimes you have students singing and dancing and just telling a story. Yeah. In development class and professional class, they are taking us into a journey of their story in F1 in school, showing their cars, showing their sponsors, the return of investment there, and just those communication skills showcasing to the judges, because that's the most important.
Well, it is, Nelson. You pick up on a good point there, because the verbal presentation isn't so much about, you know, what you say. It's not a case of you have to talk to us about X, Y, and Z. It's very much a case of how you say it, isn't it? It's a test of your presentation and communication skills, which I mean, it must be terrifying. Lawrence, when you were sort of headed into the competitions, that must have been the one big thing you were sort of worried about. I mean, you've done it regionals, nationals, and at Worlds. I mean, how do you prepare mentally for walking into a verbal presentation at a World Finals, say?
I have to say, I think the only thing that compares in the F1 in schools competition is maybe when you're that driver who has to get that one reaction time in, because it's really unlike any of the other elements where you get to prepare a lot in advance. You get to, you know, finesse your portfolios, really develop that car. But you spend all this time working on your portfolio, making sure those slides are impactful, that you get your message across, but you've only got one chance to actually present to the judges.
Yeah, so the verbal is literally a one shot, isn't it? Live, on your feet, as it were, in front of the judges. I mean, obviously this year, a little bit different. The teams have had the ability to send a verbal presentation which has been a pre-recorded, pre-edited presentation, so they've had a bit of chance to work on some other skills, maybe video production, you know, adding some transitions, some effects. So it's been amazing, Nelson, hasn't it, to see some of the work done by the teams. We won't sort of share any of those secrets with you just yet, but obviously the points for the verbal presentations are being counted in all of the other judging scores, which will be revealed with the awards shows coming up just after this show. Brilliant. Right, well, let's head back to the track. And Lawrence, you're still over at the tech pad. So Lawrence, can you tell us a bit more information about the next two teams on track, please?
I have to say, I'm really enjoying the branding on these cars. They've got some nice bold logos and they're making sure that all of the sides are covered. So that's definitely good thinking by the teams. And there's definitely been some really good CAD work going on the speed car. It's a bit difficult to pick out in that single colour, but their front wing looks straight off a Formula 1 car. They've got lots of little elements, and what that really works to do is energise that air further. So they're really using that quite small wing to fire that air over the front wheels and just stop it creating more turbulent air. We've got a few interesting features on the Mako racing car too, because behind the rear wheels we've got some little flaps, and while these are quite common on F1 in schools cars, they usually come in the form of little pods which just bring the air around behind the car and reduce that wake behind the car that pulls it back almost like a parachute. But this team appears to be trying to send it up in the air right behind. Let's see how it goes. I'm intrigued. Both cars are very close on weight, so I think we could see a really gritty battle here.
Yeah, we could. Come on, Vinesy, put your money on the table. Who are you going to go for this time?
I'm going to go for speed. It's in the name.
Whoa, very good. Nelson, any thoughts?
I have to say speed.
You've got to say speed too? Well, I'm going to go for you, Mako Racing. So come on, Mako, let's have this. Well, I think we've built them up enough now, folks. Let's go to the track, Nelson, and let's find out what indeed happens in race number 1.
So race number 1. Lane 1 we have speed, lane 2 we have Mako Racing.
There they go.
And there we have it.
Close.
Mako Racing taking it with a 1.708, but a 1.791 for Team Speed.
Yeah, I mean, interesting there. What we saw, actually, I think we saw Speed reach the split gate first. So actually they were quickest out of the blocks. And then I think we did see that overtake. So Mako reaching the split gate just behind Speed, but then getting to the finish before. So Lawrence, we saw an overtake. I mean, what exactly is happening at those different stages on the track?
Okay, so Nelson's already told us a bit about the split gate, which gives us a time reading part way down the track. But it actually tells a bit more of a story than that, because the CO2 canisters that power the car run out of gas before the finish. So the split gate has been placed approximately where those canisters run out of gas. So up to that point they're really being powered down the track. But after then, they've reached their top speed and they coast to the finish. And the aim really is, with good car build and a nice slippy aerodynamic car, not to scrub that speed off. So really interesting to see where cars excel.
Yeah, absolutely, and I guess it's a difference in, you just said it really, Lawrence, it's the aerodynamic efficiency and sort of rolling resistance, I guess, against that initial, what is it, a drag initially that's holding a car back, or what would it be in the launch phase that would really help a car leap ahead?
I think in the launch phase it's the inertia that they overcome to go from that standing start. But another thing in the launch phase is, based upon how high the canisters are, the cars can pitch downwards or even actually go upwards and do a little bit of a wheelie. And either way, that's just adding a bit of unnecessary friction, because if you're going up or down, you're not going forwards, and that's what counts in F1 in schools.
Oh, I love that. It's almost like you practiced that line, but that was just straight off the bat live. Love it, Lawrence. Thank you for that. So really interesting to watch out for some of the little nuances then in the racing between obviously the launch phase and the cruise phase. Nelson, we're ready to head back to the track, so back over to you to commentate on our next race.
And race number 2, still in the same lane. Team Speed in lane 1, Team Mako Racing in lane 2. Lights off.
Oh, that was close, wasn't it?
And we have Team Mako Racing taking it again with a 1.703.
Wow.
But look at the different Team Speed with a 1.709.
These two teams are incredibly close. I mean, look at this. You've got, what, 5? So you've got 13 thousandths of a second at the split gate and then just 6 thousandths of a second at the finish. Though there has been another overtake there. We've again seen Speed this time actually reaching the split gate first, but then Mako just pipping them to the finish. Fascinating stuff. Nelson, I know the cars are being brought back from the track finish, swapped over onto the opposite lanes and put into the alternate lanes. I don't think we're hearing of any damage out on track. I'm getting positive vibes through the earpiece here, so I think we're good to head back out to the track and see race number 3.
And for race number 3, you can see the cars are now in different lanes. So Team Mako Racing in lane 1, Team Speed in lane 2.
There they go again.
So it's Mako Racing taking it with a 1.705 and a 1.740 for Team Speed.
Oh, Mako, yep, just stretching ahead a little bit. Again, Nels, we see all the times being really consistent. I mean, this is so encouraging, Lawrence, isn't it? For our junior teams in entry class, of course, first year entrants, never been in the competition before, completing the races and producing such kind of consistent cars.
Exactly. Entry classes, that springboard to teams for their development and professional classes, where they're able to progress to the all-important national and world finals. So to see the teams when they're just starting out doing such a solid job, this is really encouraging.
Yeah, inspiring to see. Nelson, I think we're ready out on track for the final race, so let's see if we can make it a clean sweep of nice consistent times and head back to the racetrack.
Fourth and final race between Mako Racing and Speed. Lights are off. There they go. Oh, that was close with Team Speed taking it with a 1.740 and a 1.758 to Mako Racing.
Incredibly close again. I mean, there's not really much to call these teams. It's down to the thousandths of a second at the end. They are the differences in F1 and schools. But of course, as we've said time and again, those points are given for consistency and for the times you set, not for the win or the loss on the track. So well done to both teams, heading across with some solid points there from the racing. Lawrence, I believe we're going to hear from you about the last entry class team up on track today, and I think they're racing against the Ghost team in lane 2. So Lawrence, over to you.
So first of all, I'll tell you a little bit about this. So this happens when we have an odd number of teams. So this means in the other lane there won't be a car running. So this makes a little bit of a difference to the dynamics of the car down the track possibly, because when there are two cars, they're both chucking this turbulent air over that centre boundary, and that could have two effects really. The turbulent air means that the aerodynamics don't function quite as intended, which could make the car a little bit slower. But equally, that less dense air could provide a little bit of a slipstream effect. So it's going to be interesting, but I think this team has a really good shot. I think they may be the lightest car we've seen in the entry class as well. And what a beautiful hand-painted finish on the car. Quite a long car, solid body. I expect this one to finish every race and be very consistent.
That is a bold claim, Lawrence. I think, yeah, picking out what you said about the finish, beautiful way of finishing the car. I think, what have they, looking from this picture, have they sort of painted the car and then removed a little bit of the surface with a bit of sandpaper? Is that a sort of a naked finish we see there, or is that a hand-painted contrasting finish there?
I think either what you said, Mark, or possibly a little bit of masking tape.
Okay. What we can say about that is inconclusive. Nelson, you were the scrutineer's eye view. Can you shed any light on this? Is the finish a sanded finish or is that a painted finish?
No idea.
Okay, I love how we set that up and set ourselves up completely to fail there. But Fusion, you've done a lovely job either way. We're big fans of the car. Let us know on social media exactly what we should have said about your beautiful car. Now, close to the weight limit, so looking quick. Lawrence has given it his seal of approval. So Nelson, let's find out how Fusion gets on the track. Let's head to race
number 1.
Number 1, indeed.
Race number 1, lane 1, Fusion. All lights are going to go off, and there we have it. So just to remind our viewers that because we don't have a car in lane 2, the system takes a little bit longer to give us the result because it's just waiting to see if anyone finishes. So we have a 1.433 for Team Fusion.
Wow.
So that's actually very good considering the entry class.
Yeah, I'm going to say that strikes me as a quick time. I mean, the split gates reached the split gate in less than half a second. So indeed, really quick. And you can tell there, obviously, the split gate at the end of, as Lawrence was explaining, at the end of the launch phase, when the canister has given up all its gas, all its propulsion, then the car rolling to a finish, coasting down for about another second, roughly. So yeah, really interesting little performance there from Fusion. Looking good. Nelson, let's head back to the track then and see what happens in race number 2.
Now, race number 2, still in the same lane. Team Fusion, lane 1. Lights off. There it goes. So we just need to wait a couple of seconds for the results to come in.
And just building the tension in the studio before revealing.
So it's a 1.415.
Okay. A little bit quicker again, I think, there, Nels. So, yeah, Fusion car doing well. Lawrence, you are as yet proven correct, of course. Why would we ever doubt you? Indeed, at this point, Nelson, the track team obviously bringing the car back,
swapping the cars,
switching those lanes over, and giving the team a go in the alternate lane. Vinesy, did you have a favourite lane at the World Finals? Was that a thing for you or not?
At the World Finals it was actually, yes.
Really?
Because we were in this massive exhibition hall and massive open space, but the bottom of the track was near a bit of a doorway.
Weird.
So while I don't think it actually made any difference, we always had the idea that if we were a bit further away, we were less likely to have any interference from maybe a little bit of a headwind going up the track, possibly.
You were fans of lane 2 then at the World Finals?
At the World Finals.
A bit away from the door. Interesting. Wow, intriguing little nuances. Nelson, I think again we're hearing from the track team that, as Lawrence predicted, this car is in one piece, sturdy and quick, and we're ready to head out again for race number 3.
Right, let's see if it beats that 1.415. So now in lane 2, car is off.
Off it goes.
Perfect in the deceleration system.
Yeah, no issues so far.
And it's a 1.433. So didn't actually drop from that 1.415, but very consistent.
Yeah, again quick to within a couple of hundredths of a second of its previous best time, the Fusion car. So maybe in lane 2 we can just see the quickest race at the end. We have seen a couple of cars in the entry and the development class go quicker at the end in a very final race, in lane 2 especially. So not trying to predict what's going to happen here, Fusion, but I've got my fingers crossed for your quickest time. Let's just see what happens, and please, I haven't watched this already, so I don't know what is going to happen next. The action is about to unfold in front of our very eyes. So Nels, if you'd like to talk us through the final race, let's see if Fusion can set their quickest time.
Race number 4. Fusion, lane 2. Lights off.
There it goes.
Deceleration system.
And have I been proven correct or a bit of a muppet?
We have...
I'm a bit of a muppet.
1.461. But well done anyway, Team Fusion.
Absolutely superb performance from Fusion there. Again, we keep saying the same thing, a bit of a broken record here, that the teams are super consistent, you know, really solid, reliable times, and really nothing, you know, nothing that we could say to the teams to go, you know, you really need to try harder there. There's some absolutely phenomenal efforts here and great effort with the car builds. Now that is it, folks, in the development class. So let's take a quick, in the entry class. Yeah, there I go again. We've got the final leaderboard to show you now. So quite clearly at the top there, we've got Fusion from St Joseph's College taking it with first place on a 1.415 down to Carvid21, whose lovely pun. I'm convinced that is a play on COVID-19. I think, yeah, fair play to you guys for seeing the funny side. Carvid21 there on 2.6 second time, but of course we said at the time, super consistent, pumping in the 2.6s time after time again. So really well done. Of course, Nelson, the asterisk, as you've said many times before, is
these are the race times for the racing, but to win the fastest car award, you cannot break any performance regulations.
Correct. Those yellow highlighted rules in the technical regulations, they're performance regulations, which you must not break to win our fastest car award. But the points are safe. So well done to our entry class teams. Now, as we head into, and just before we head into the development class racing, we've talked a lot again about the cars, we've talked a bit about the verbal presentations. We know that a huge amount goes into the team's enterprise activities, so marketing, sponsorship, brand identity. So just to give you a little bit of a wider picture, here exactly is how the enterprise section is judged.
Enterprise judging forms a central part of a team's point score. Teams produce a portfolio, a team identity and a pit display worth 180 points. The judges are looking for evidence of project management, teamwork, sponsorship and marketing, an F1 in Schools project evaluation and the presentation of a document, all counting towards the portfolio score. Team identity is scored on its own, while the pit display takes 3 categories: marketing, graphic design and actual content. With 3 separate assessments, it's a multimedia judging area. For the portfolio, development class produce a 5-page portfolio, where professional class produce a 10-page portfolio. With teams essentially creating their own businesses, our judges need to have experience of this too, with a wealth of experience coming from across industry, from business owners, entrepreneurs, to marketing and sponsorship specialists.
Okay, good to hear a little bit about the enterprise judging and how it's scored. Lawrence, I know you've been taking a bit of a closer look at the work of the teams. What have you picked out for us?
Well, today I thought we'd look at the social media, because outside the events that happen 3 times a year, the regional finals, national and world finals, social media really are the team's main point of call with the outside world. So there are a few things we're looking at. So first of all, Golden Motorsport made use of insights built into social media software such as Instagram and Twitter to get insights to how their audience was growing and how many people were viewing their posts. And I thought this was really interesting because you can actually put a metric on the visibility and the people that are seeing your content, which means when you go to sponsors, you can say we have this tangible number of people that will see your logo, and I think that's a really good metric to be able to provide them with. And then we go on to Pulsar, who have really got into the nitty-gritty of how social media works so that they can appeal to the right audience. So for multiple different social media platforms, they looked at the age demographic who used it, but they also looked at what time of day people look at their social media so they can get those posts out right when people are going to see them.
Wow. Thank you, Lawrence. I mean, that's some detailed stuff. That strikes me as kind of, I mean, Nels, you've got more experience with this, but this strikes me as quite high level, you know, almost a professional interpretation of using social media.
It is very high level, very professional. I mean, we as an organization every day have to look into tools that analyze data from social media for you to see when are the best times to post your content and everything. So for the teams to be doing this in development class, it's really outstanding.
Yeah, I mean, Lawrence, is this a kind of I guess, is this a way of sort of validating the pitches that you make to sponsors? It's not just a case of, you know, trying to hope that people, you know, buy into you. It's been able to actually, provide some evidence to say this is what we're doing as a team to expand our reach.
Definitely. And another nice thing about this is that you can really show a tangible improvement as well. You can say, at the regional finals, 200 people saw my post, but look at what we did. We made this really cool video, and now people just keep coming back to see what we're going to post next, and now it's gone up to 1,000. So a really good way of measuring your progress too, and seeing what kind of content's most popular.
Yeah, thanks, Lawrence. I mean, really interesting to see now. Some great to see another way that the teams are pushing, the boundaries of marketing, of enterprise, not just relying on the kind of, logo on car, sort of usual accepted approach to sponsorship.
I think we can take this opportunity to say you can follow us on social media with F1 in Schools HQ on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and TikTok.
Absolutely. Nelson points await for anybody that follows us. Right. Speaking of points, time to go to the track and find out who's going to score some points in the racing for development class. Lawrence, I think you've got some information first up on our first 2 teams in dev class.
So, machined out of a block of gold bullion, we have Tectonic on the left-hand lane with this very unique design, actually. I have to say, it looks like a hammerhead shark or something, this very vertical fin. And you can see the objective here, it's just a slice through the air. Quite a very solid design. I expect it'll also slice through that deceleration system, so hopefully we still see that car's as robust as it looks. In the right-hand lane we have Phantom. They have this multi-element front wing again to accelerate that air and really make it doubly effective, powering it over those front wheels and reducing turbulence. And yeah, both cars at the minimum weight for development class at 60 grams. What's your pick, Mark?
Well, thanks for throwing to me, Lawrence. I mean, first question, how on earth have they managed to get, Tectonic managed to get a gold bullion down to 60 grams? That's got to have anti-gravity paint on there somewhere. That's impressive stuff, but yeah, really eye-catching design. I mean, you mentioned there that the sort of multi-element front wing. I know you're going to talk about that perhaps in a little bit of detail later on. But yeah, that Tectonic design just really stands out to me. It's a very different approach, isn't it? Almost taking, the sort of scoop approach and turning it literally on its side. So I'm gonna stick a vote in for Tectonic here.
I'm gonna go Phantom because red's my game.
Absolutely, Lawrence. Back to you. Pick a winner for us, please.
Let's go with Phantom. More conventional car design, but let's see if maybe Tectonic's unique approach will get some points for them too.
Absolutely. There's only one way to find out. Mr. Nelson Vale, prepare yourself to commentate, please, on race number 1.
Off to the track, Tectonic in lane 1, Phantom in lane 2. Lights are off, and there they go. Ah, that was close. With Tectonic with a 1.291 against Phantom with a 1.328.
Yeah, go on Tectonic, but that's super close. I mean, the split time is really impressive as well. Tectonic reaching the split in less than half a second, so 0.490, and then the race time, again, less than 1.3 seconds. I mean, these both are pretty quick times. So far all to play for, but Tectonic just one in the lead there. Nels, we're going to head back to the track, and I think you're going to commentate us through race number 2.
Yes, race number 2. So cars still in the same lane. So Tectonic in lane 1, Phantom in lane 2. Lights off. There they go. And we can see Tectonic taking it again with a 1.232 against a 1.317 of Team Phantom.
Yeah, Tectonic stretching that advantage now, Nelson. So as we bring the cars back to swap them over into different lanes, again, you can see, like we've referred to earlier, both teams' wings just sailing above those brushes, so staying out of harm's way, letting the canister, letting the wheels, letting the chamber rather, take all the brunt of those brushes. So some intelligent design there from the two St. Olaf's teams.
We get to see if lane 2 is going to apply its magic
again.
The
words out of my mouth, Nels. Here we are, heading to race number 3 and back to the racetrack to see if this lane switch does indeed unearth a difference in the cars. Nels, over to you.
So as you can see, lanes, the cars are in different lanes now. Lights off, and we have Team Tectonic taking it again with a 1.235, but followed by a 1.276 for Team Phantom.
Yeah, that's quicker on both sides. So I think Tectonic have gone even quicker again, but Phantom seem to be kind of almost catching up now. That seems to, I mean, both cars seem to enjoy actually the opposite lane, so very interesting to see that. I'm not hearing any reports of damage from the track guys in my earpiece, so I think else we can head out for the final race in this pairing. So let's see which way this is going to swing in the 4th and final race.
Final race, lane 1, Phantom, lane 2, Tectonic. Lights off. Oh, that's close again, and it's Tectonic with a 1.254, and Phantom not that far away with a 1.304. Very good times for both teams.
Solid performance from both teams there. And again, Tectonic and Phantom on that occasion both breaking the split gate in less than half a second. So yeah, very impressive indeed. And more points heading your way. Lawrence, heading your way now for a bit of info on the next two teams.
Well, I have to say, I think we've got a very informed design from Tectonic on the left. You see their beautifully curved convex side pods. Well, I think they're used to take that air, rolling off the back of the front wheels and making use of the Coanda effect. Now, this is a phenomenon that makes air stick to these convex surfaces, and so it'll stick to those side pods and tuck in just before the rear wheels, hopefully so less of it's churned up and turned into turbulent air and wake behind the car. And on the right we have the Peregrine car, unfinished. You can just see the F1 model block. I think they might have done that for weight, as you can see there. Not far off the minimum weight, but with a coat of paint they'd definitely be well above, and repping that F1 in Schools branding on the nose. I like it.
Yeah, big fan of that. Nelson, the holographic stickers, of course, chasing us around wherever we go, and lovely to see that. Yeah, really interesting designs from both teams. You've got the sort of, I guess you've got the kind of mid-90s style platypus nose there from the, the shark nose from the Tectonic car, and then the more sort of traditional platypus nose from Peregrine, taking you back to the glory days of my childhood with differing F1 noses. Gary Anderson will be sat at home going, absolutely, Mark, spot on. Your knowledgeless set of knowledge is quite astounding. Really close on the weight, identical wheelbases. I mean, this is difficult to pick a winner. Lawrence, are you going to stick your money on either side of the fence here?
You know, I think that paint, all the extra finishes are just going to help Tectonic keep their speed throughout the race. They're just going to be that bit more robust, so I think they'll get the best times.
Ooh, interesting stuff. Okay, I can feel a Coanda effect explainer at some point coming on, Lawrence. I'd be keen to see from you at some point what on earth that is all about. But Nelson, the time has come. Let's head over to the track and find out how Tectonic and Peregrine do out on the racetrack.
Time to race. Protonic, lane 1. Peregrine, lane 2. Lights off. And they go, that was close. With Protonic taking it with a 1.298 against a 1.302 of Peregrine, but actually Peregrine crossed the split gate first.
It did. So we had that overtake moment where the launch phase and the cruise phase actually swap positions on track, and I mean, look at that, 4,000ths of a second there between finish times. I mean,
so close.
Basically finished neck and neck. You couldn't cut it at the end. There is my evil twin indeed at the end of the track. Lark doing the work on the finish gate. Nelson, I believe your evil twin Gelson is ready back at the start. So back to Lark and Gelson over on the track. Nelson, it's time for us to commentate on race number 2.
Race number 2, still in the same lanes, looking good by the track start. All lights are on and they're off.
Wow, again.
And we have Protonic taking it with a 1.282 against a 1.300 of Peregrine.
Yeah, again,
very, very close again.
Again, incredibly close. I mean, that is so close you could barely even cut it at the split gate. 1,000th of a second separating the two teams. Well, Nelson, this is the point in the racing where the cars obviously come back, the lanes are swapped, the cars are checked for any damage, the scrutineers, the race officials out there are just giving them a quick eye up, making sure that there's no damage. I'm not hearing from the guys outside that there is any damage on the cars. Again, you can see those wings just sitting neatly above the brushes there. I think the teams are realising that this is a really crucial part of the design of an F1 in Schools car, to actively avoid the height of those brushes, which of course, Nelson, we should say, is published in the regulations. We're not holding any secrets here. We can, you can find out exactly the dimensions of those brushes, and I think we'd all agree in the studio that designing your car to be sympathetic to those dimensions is going to be the right way forward. Nelson, I think we're ready to head back to the racetrack and to see race number 3.
And in race number 3, in different lanes, we now have Peregrine in lane 1, Protonic in lane 2.
Great little view down the track there as they launch.
And they're off, and we have Peregrine taking it with a 1.245 against a 1.275 of Protonic.
Yeah, and there we have it again. Super close finish. Again, under the 1.3 second mark, and Peregrine, in fact, under 1.25. So some pretty competitive times here in the dev class. Well, I think we can head back to the track, Nelson, for the final time and see what happens then in race number 4.
Exciting. And for race number 4, same lanes, lights on, they're off. Oh, that was very close again, with Protonic taking it with a 1.262 against a 1.311 from Peregrine.
Oof, wow, some exciting racing here in the dev class. These are neck and neck, and I think it's going to be interesting to see when we get there to the final leaderboard just exactly how close these times are now. So we'll head back to the track shortly, but in the meantime I think we're just going to throw to Lawrence Vines, who's got a little bit of input for us. Lawrence.
So when talking you through the Protonic car, I mentioned the Coanda effect, so I thought I'd tell you just a little bit more about it. So the Coanda effect, as I said, is how air sticks especially to convex surfaces. And this isn't actually just air, this is any fluid, so that includes liquids too. So we've got this simplified diagram here that gives you a bit of an idea how that works. So we've got our concave front wing here, and we can see that the airflow is actually sent round and possibly becomes turbulent, which has a negative effect all the way down the length of the car. Whereas with this convex surface, the flow just stays attached to the end and manages the flow very nicely.
Lawrence, thank you so much for that. I mean, well, there you go, folks. That is the Coanda effect, I guess. Think about the shapes of your wing. Think about the surfaces that you're going to use in your wing profiles and your body profile. Think about the direction that you want the air to go from. I mean, I guess, Lawrence, it's not just about considering the shape at the front of the car. You've got to think of the whole car as a connected shape from start to finish. The air is, the air that starts at the front finishes at the back. So it's got to follow, I guess, the path of least resistance.
Completely. How the air arrives at your rear wing and even just at your front wheels is completely determined by the shape of your front wing, for example. So you really have to approach the car as a whole rather than as a collection of individual elements.
Lovely stuff. Thank you again, Lawrence. So just before we head back out onto the track, Nelson, just a little bit of a sideline here, which of course is to discuss the impact of F1 in Schools on those who compete, Nelson. We know that F1 in Schools has a massive effect on those who compete, often sort of shaping their futures in the form of career aspirations and in both their hard and soft skills gained. So we caught up a little earlier with an ex-competitor just to find out how life after F1 in schools is shaping up.
So I am Nathaniel Jenkins. I am an F1 in Schools alumnus and judge. I'm currently studying aeronautical engineering at Imperial College in London, and I'm an aerodynamics and simulations engineer at ICL Rocketry's altitude record team. There's so many ways. Where do I start? Having competed years ago, I started off not a lot of confidence about my abilities or public speaking particularly. I think that is the biggest thing. Confidence in the work that I've done and just being able to speak to people. But it's just given me so many hard and soft skills. Not only do I now understand aerodynamics and engineering, starting my degree, having done F1 in schools, I knew a huge amount actually compared to some of my peers who hadn't done competitions like this. And the soft skills as well, just being able to listen to people, work with other team members and manage various aspects of teamwork and engineering. Time management particularly, that's a big one. Actually getting research and projects done on time is, it's made a massive difference. It's usually, for the last 2 years, I've judged verbal presentations and design and engineering. They're sort of my two big categories, if you like. I think the biggest bit of advice, certainly, that we give out loads and loads as judges is read the mark schemes. We give the teams the mark schemes in the competition regulations. So if you read those and you make sure that your portfolios and your presentations meet every criteria in those high bands on the mark scheme, then you will do well. But that's certainly the biggest piece of advice. But also just have confidence in the work that you've done. You know this better than anyone else. You know this better than the judges because it's your work. It's just a matter of showing us that and being able to explain that. So as long as you're confident in your work and you can explain that to the judges, then you guys can do very well. Well, as always, I've been very impressed by the quality this year. Despite working through a pandemic, it's just impressive that any of the teams have made it to the competition, but somehow they've made it to the competition through a pandemic, and the quality of the work is still an improvement on years before. It just gets better and better every year. I've been particularly impressed, I think, by some of the simulations. I'm quite keen on CFD, as I think you might be able to tell by my background, but the simulations that they're running this year have been quite impressive. Just you're running things that most degree students wouldn't even consider until a few years into a university degree, if then. It's very advanced CFD that they're doing and very advanced analysis of these aerodynamic concepts that I found very impressive, at least. I spent some time thinking about this. I had to really think about this hard, but I think the 3 words that I've come up with are students being awesome. That's F1 in schools. It is these students just producing incredible work and being absolutely awesome competitors. Congratulations to the teams, first of all, and well done for making it to regionals. You'll hear it a lot from the judges and from the F1 in schools team that well done, you've made it to regionals. But we're not saying this to be kind or just out of sympathy. It is a big achievement, particularly this year with the pandemic. It is a massive amount of work. We know how much effort's gone into this. So you should be proud for just making it here. And we're really impressed by the work that we've seen, or the work that I've seen at least. So congratulations for making it. Wish you all the best to the teams and good luck.
Oh, what a thoroughly inspiring little message there from Nathaniel. Nat, thank you for recording that for us. And of course, Nat has been through regionals, been through nationals to a world finals, has judged and now been part of the actual event team and the world finals. So he's kind of seen it all. And Yeah, some really wise words there from Nathaniel. Just you know, feel positive about what you've done, guys. This is just an exceptional year to have achieved anything over just, you know, what was required by school. So to be here competing at a regional finals remotely and having sent all your work in is truly remarkable. So, yeah, I think we all echo the words of Nat. Thank you again. So, right, to a familiar face, familiar voice in Lawrence Vines. Lawrence, you're going to talk us through the next two cars up on track.
So for the next round we have Eclipse v Obsidian. Now we've got two very different cars here. Eclipse, it's a very simple design, but I think we'll find that it's also got a very, very small frontal area, and the drag experienced by the car is actually proportional to the frontal area. So I think watch out for this one. They've also managed to keep it very low on weight, so I'm excited to see how that one does. Obsidian, a really strong brand identity here. Team Obsidian by name, and the car is really Obsidian black. It looks like they've taken a bit of inspiration from go-karts, and I've done my fair bit of bumping those round, and I know they're pretty robust, so I don't think we'll see any issues with this car. That bit of size comes with a bit of weight, but I'm excited to see how it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I know you were intrigued by this one. I mean, you can barely make out. It's such a menacing shade of obsidian, like you say. But it's some really, you couldn't find two more contrasting designs, could you, Lawrence? I mean, it just goes to show that there is, even within the, you know, the restrictions of development class rules, that the teams can still be completely creative.
Yes, oh, really nice to see such a range of designs. And I think if I was lining up on that starting line next to the Obsidian car, I'd be trembling with fear. Oh. It's like you've got the Hulk against you. It's gonna...
You've heard it here, folks. The Hulk up against the Eclipse. Nelson, I think you're ready to commentate, and I'm pretty sure that Lark and Gelson out there are ready to race the cars. So let's head back out to the track and for the first race in this round.
So, race number 1 with the Eclipse in lane 1, Obsidian in lane 2.
Growling there.
Lights off. There they go.
It's close.
It is close. And it's Eclipse with a 1.373 and a 1.551 for Obsidian. But look, Mark,
yeah,
the split time on Obsidian, they got to the split gate first.
So Lawrence, that go-kart absolutely belting out the starting gates and got to the split gate first. I mean, could you even speculate on what it is about that design that helps it in the launch phase?
I think we can see across the car that while it may look a bit boxy, that means the weight is actually really evenly distributed. So we see that upon that launch, there's absolutely no pitch. It just goes straight off the line. And really impressive, actually. We can see that those aerodynamics are working all the way down the track, as despite being about 20 grams heavier, they're really pushing Team Eclipse.
Yeah, and by pitch you mean, of course, the front of the car lifting or diving when the canister goes off, so that sort of angle of attack, as it were, off the start. So, you know, saying the Obsidian car just takes a nice level launch. Really nice bit of analysis there, Lawrence. Thank you for that. Nelson, speaking of analysis, you can analyse live as it happens in race number 2.
Like you said, race number 2, still in the same lane. Eclipse in lane 1, Obsidian in lane 2. They're off, and we have Eclipse taking it with a 1.457 and a 1.575 for Obsidian.
Yeah, there it goes. Undoing all our hard punditry and then crossing the split gate second that time, Obsidian. But never know, this could be, we've talked about it many times before, you know, the car's gradually starting to wear as races go on and finding a little bit of movement, a bit of a vibration here and there. So be good to keep our eye on this, Nelson. I mean, the actual finish times are remarkably close there. You know, 1.45 and 1.57.
Really close.
Yeah, we're still very close together. So heading back to the start now, the cars are just being swapped over by our track technicians out there, our battle-hardened, experienced international track management team. And I believe now they are back in position. Just through the little window there, I can see the track is ready. So Nelson, we're going to head back out there to the racetrack for race number 3.
Race number 3, so you can now see the cars in the different lanes. Obsidian in lane 1, Eclipse in lane 2, and they're off. So just a few more seconds for the race system to give us the times, and it's a 1.406 for Eclipse and a 1.567 for Obsidian.
Yeah, there they go, pretty consistent again, those two. I mean, yeah, we're just seeing, and it's a recurring theme, but it's a really inspiring one to see that, yet again, no breakages, The performance of the cars obviously does seem to fluctuate between the races. We know that could be a feature of the the design and manufacture process, just showing up where the cars are perhaps bedding in or starting to just develop a little bit of a wobble or a bit of looseness over the races. But really interesting to see, and again, two great cars going down the track head to head. Speaking of head to heads, Nels, it's the final race, so let's get back out there again and see what happens in race 4.
Final race, Obsidian, lane 1, Eclipse, lane 2, track is ready, teams are ready, lights are ready, go! And we have Team Eclipse with a 1.362. I think that's probably their best time yet.
Yeah, that strikes me as their quickest time yet. So in the final race, we've seen it many times that some of the cars just get quicker and quicker and quicker, and that last race is their big moment now. So we saw it again there, Eclipse and Obsidian. Cracking performance from both teams. Brilliant stuff.
Congrats.
Well, I'm going to take a little sip on our artisan spiced tomato drink as Lawrence talks us through the next pair of teams.
So, we have our 2 teams from King's College School now, and we can see that the designs look very similar. But I have found a subtle difference. If you look towards the rear of the side pod for the Typhoon racing car, they've got a little flick designed to send the air outwards away from the wheels, and it's going to be interesting to see. I'd expect that to create a bit of a larger wake behind the car, but equally, without that air feeding into the wheels and being churned up and becoming turbulent, maybe that'll prove an advantage. Loving that fade on the Impulse Racing. I was never brave enough to try and pull one of those off myself, so hats off. Both cars are very similar on weight, 0.7 of a gram separates them, and yes, looking forward to seeing them race.
Yeah, likewise. I mean, yeah, lovely colour scheme there, Nelson. I mean, you see a lot of the cars' finishes coming through the scrutineering table every year. I mean, this is the kind of finish that does take quite a lot of hard work and usually a bit of trial and error to get that fade just right, doesn't it?
Yeah, and you know what? It looks like a little bit of glitter there, and you know how much I love a little bit of glitter. So I'm gonna be rooting for Team Impulse here.
Yeah, anything with heads up for the future, folks. Anything with glitter is more than likely to go down really well with Nelson. Please, no glitter bombs in the post.
Glitter, it's shiny, it's beautiful. Come on.
Okay, if you say so, Nels. Right, and we're gonna head out to the track and just see if the glitter bomb in lane 2 can outpace the Typhoon in lane 1. So, Nelson, call it as you see it. Race number 1.
Race number 1 with Typhoon Racing in lane 1 and Impulse Racing in lane 2. Lights are gonna go on and they're off. Oh, that was close. So the system is telling us,
I think Impulse took it. I think Impulse just...
With a 1.299, that's for Impulse Racing, while Typhoon Racing got a 1.322.
That is a mighty split time as well, 0.382. I think that's one of the quickest times we've seen in Dev class, and I think certainly that 1.299 is going to get Impulse quite near the top. So really interesting little performance in race 1 there for both cars. Nelson, I think we're good to go on track again. So the cars have been wheeled back, put into position, a fresh canister has been inserted, and we are good to go for race number 2.
Race number 2, good looking on the track start. Same lanes. And they're off. Not as close as the before.
It looks like
Impulse.
And
it's 1.285 for Impulse Racing with a 1.348 for Typhoon Racing.
Just starting to stretch the advantage a bit, isn't it, Impulse Racing? Well, we'll see now whether the lane difference makes a difference to the cars or whether there's a a gradual mechanical fade or improvement even in either of those two machines as the track guys just do their magic out on track, bringing the cars back, wheeling them carefully back under the split gate, back to the finish, removing the pods from the track, removing the weights, of course, which hold down our tether lines at a preset tension, reinserting the tether guides, putting the cars back on the track, back past the start pods, reinsert the CO2 cartridge, align the new pod, and ready to go. It's almost like I've done this before.
You forgot to taking the cartridge out of the fridge and then inserting the
Of course. I mean, we know the cartridges are stored at a set temperature, Nelson, of course, at 21 degrees C. And yes, we are indeed ready to go out on track. Lark and Gelson have given us the thumbs up. Away we go, Nelson, for race 3.
And we have race 3. Different lanes now. Impulse Racing in lane 1, Typhoon Racing in lane 2. Lights are off. Oh, that was close again. And we have Impulse Racing with a 1.341, but with a 1.356 of Typhoon.
Yeah, these cars are tiny.
A little bit more wind and they will get there.
Oof. Lovely little pun there, Nels. I mean, they are getting closer. The times are just gradually slowing down, but the cars are getting closer together as we move through. So it'll be really interesting now to see if the last race has a surprise in store for us. Nelson, let's commentate through race number 4.
Race number 4. Tensions are high.
Big time.
Impulse Racing lane 1, Typhoon Racing lane 2, and there we have it with Impulse Racing with a 1.303 and a 1.339 for Typhoon Racing. That's probably the best time yet.
I think they just set one in the high 1.2s. So I think we've got a 1.29. But yeah, right. that time at a 1.303 will definitely help them in consistency terms. So yeah, really not losing many points there, I don't think, Impulse Racing, and superb effort there for both teams. Well, Nelson, that brings us to a conclusion of the development class racing. So again, as we take a swig on our spiced artisan tomato drink, which is going down a storm actually. How's your windpipe?
It's good. It's spicy.
Yeah,
it's
just
nice.
a little tickle on the throat there. Let's head to the leaderboard. Let's have a look, and it is indeed Tectonic. I think they're actually called Tectonic, but St Olave's Grammar School. They're in prime position for those racing points. If, Nelson, they got a clean sweep for scrutineering for you, they'll be fastest car winners as well, but they'll only find out in the awards show.
In the awards.
Looking good, really good performance from all the teams there. Obsidian from St Joseph's down there. I mean, 1.543 again, we said it at the time, no slouch. No slouch at all. Really impressive from all the teams. So, yeah, interesting to see where they stack up on the overall final leaderboard when you mix in the entry and the pro class. So, moving on then, Nelson, and just before we get stuck into the pro class, we're going to probably talk a lot more about the cars as we see them, but just to give you guys a little bit of a bit more of an explainer now into exactly how the design and engineering judging is assessed.
Design and engineering sits at the heart of F1 in schools. Teams produce a portfolio worth 180 points. The competition judges are looking for evidence of design concepts, 3D modelling, computer-aided analysis or CAA, the use of CAD/CAM, computer-aided design and manufacture, the manufacturing and assembly of the car, the research and development journey a team has gone on, testing processes such as CFD or computational fluid dynamics, the design process evaluation and the presentation of the team's document. Portfolios are presented in A3 format, with development class producing a 5-page portfolio and professional class producing 10-page portfolios. Such high-quality work demands highly qualified judges. The engineering sector provides many of its finest minds to help judge F1 in schools, with a stellar cast of names from Formula 1, the automotive industry, aerospace industry and beyond.
Oh, well, there we have it. A little bit of an insider into how design and engineering judging is assessed. And Lawrence, I know you've been looking a bit closer at the design and engineering work of the professional class teams especially. What stood out to you then in those portfolios?
Well, for this explainer, we're going to go back to basics, because in our primary and secondary education, we don't really come across aerodynamics, or I'd say not at all. So when teams compete in F1 in schools, it's usually their first experience of working with aerodynamics. So when you've got relatively small budgets, it's very sensible to kind of capitalise on the millions and millions invested by companies that have been working in this field for years as well. So the process to this, I would say, is you need to look at vehicles that achieve similar objectives to what you're trying to achieve with your F1 in schools car. So that is, essentially, outright pace in a straight line. But also you need to consider that the wheels aren't actually driven. So we might look at the drag racer here and look at components, but we need to consider why they are as they are. So this vehicle goes very fast in a straight line, but we don't make our F1 in schools wheels as big as we're allowed, because actually those wheels are connected to this massive engine which drives power into them, and they have to deliver that to the track, whereas we're powered by a CO2 canister. So a more comparable vehicle, perhaps, would be the land speed record cars, such as the Thrust SSC. And we can see that Impulse actually really carried on this kind of extruded cylinder really into their design, inspired by the Thrust SSC. But I would really recommend that to all of the teams to just analyse existing vehicles out there. What are their features? and why are they like they are, and can you take a few cues from them into your own designs?
Oh, Lawrence, thank you again for your analysis. And I must correct myself again because this was a development class team, not a professional class team.
Yeah, so some really, really good work. Very informed decision making, and yeah, I just really applaud the process employed by Impulse when starting their car design.
Yeah, really impressive because you do default. I mean, naturally, I think as a first timer in F1 in schools, you'd think, well, let's look at F1 cars and see how they're designed. But of course, you mentioned, the propulsion, the actual format of the platform, as it were, is completely different. The rear-driven wheels providing a completely different set of forces on the car than a CO2 chamber, which, like you say, is very much like the land speed record cars. But I mean, Impulse, props to you for doing that. That is impressive. I mean, yeah. Nelson, F1 in schools for land speed record. What do you think?
Never know. I mean, we may have some alumni working on that project very soon.
Absolutely. Well, and you met Nathaniel before, who's effectively becoming a real-life rocket scientist. So who knows? We might have a land speed record to our names one day. Now then, Lawrence, you have got some information for us on the first 2 professional class teams up on track, and I know that these have caught your eye. So what exactly is it about them that has really got you excited?
So this is actually the head-to-head of the teams that I talked about their social media earlier, and they do have these striking cars in the same colour scheme as their logo, which I really like. In the left lane we have Golden Motorsport with that beautiful golden nose. They've got this flat plane that sticks out ahead of it. This is just getting that air, and it's making it laminar before it hits the front wing, and that means it's just taking whatever funny angles the air comes in at, and it just gets it in these nice streamlines before it hits that wedge, which is designed to send that air over the front wheels. A little use of Coanda effects perhaps with the side pods as well, with that beautiful convex curve. When we get to Pulsar, we can see that they've done some really good work there lightweighting those wheels. You can see they've got that really thin outer wall and those 4 supports. I expect them to have very low rolling resistance. Both teams with a similar approach to their rear wings. I'm excited to see how these teams shape up. I'm going to go with Pulsar, personally. Slightly lighter, but I do think it could be close.
Yeah, I think so too, Lawrence. I mean, really, engineering aside, this is the battle of likes, shares and comments now, isn't it? It's the battle of the social media platforms. So be really intriguing to see here which of the teams can race down the start-finish line and, past the start line to the finish line in the quickest time. Nelson Vale, you are primed and ready, I believe, with your special commentator's voice to commentate for us in race number 1.
So we have race number 1, lane 1, Golden Motorsport, lane 2, Pulsar. Lights off. Wow. And arriving first, we have Pulsar with a 1.152 and Golden Motorsport with a 1.248. That's a very good time.
There we are. Immediately the pro class living up to their name and setting the pace. I mean, interestingly enough, I'm just noticing the split times there. I think we've seen quicker split times from some of the development class cars, which is interesting. When you bear in mind that obviously the professional class have a bit of an option on where they place the chamber and where they place the cylinder. The development class cars don't get that option, do they, Nelson? Because of course, in the dev class, the cars are restricted with a fundamental shape.
A no-go zone.
Absolutely, the no-go zone, which is almost the kind of the central chassis of your car. So the CO2 chamber is actually controlled within that, and height isn't something that teams can change. So interesting to see there that the pro class cars may be just struggling, as Lawrence was saying, just to control that pitch off the start. I am learning as we go in here, Lawrence. I'm picking up some intel. So yeah, Pulsar and Golden Motorsport just initially struggling to get through the sector gate, but you can tell there, Pulsar especially, absolutely flying down the cruise phase. So Nelson, I'm incredibly eager to see what happens in race number 2. Shall we head out to the track?
Yes, please.
Find out. Let's do it. Race number 2.
Race number 2. Cars looking great at the track start. Lights are coming on and they're off. And we have Pulsar taking it with a 1.186.
There we go. Nelson, it just occurred to me that we haven't even mentioned the glass class here, because both cars surviving the first 2 races completely unscathed. Well, you say easy. I mean, it's definitely not easy, is it, Lawrence? I mean, how many, if you had to try and put a rough estimate to it, how many cars do you think you smashed to pieces during testing or racing in your F1 in schools career?
I mean, I think I could only count the brakes that were to an unrepairable stage, because the amount of times we've had to pop single wheels back on or maybe glue something back on is almost uncountable. But I think we've had maybe 3 or 4 times where the whole car has shattered, like you mentioned, the glass class.
Oh, dearie me. I mean, yeah, almost as many repairs as races then, you think, over the years. Well, not the case with Pulsar and Golden Motorsport, of course. 2 races, 2 clean sheets, and 2 really competitive cars. Nelson, I believe that our counterparts out there have indeed refreshed the lanes. The cars are now in the opposite lanes and ready to go for race number 3.
Now, race number 3, different lanes. Pulsar in lane 1, Golden Motorsport in lane 2. They're off, and we have it for Pulsar with a 1.138.
Yeah, you could really see the difference there on the finish, couldn't you? I mean, I think Pulsar just now starting to stretch that advantage, maybe. And we talked about it before, Lawrence. I mean, professional class use the bearings, and potentially that can go one of 2 ways for the teams, can't it, during the racing?
Yes, well, during the racing there can be debris that enters the bearings, and that can just cause some extra resistance, stopping them moving as easily and as smoothly. But also, most bearings feature lubricant inside, which does or should help them keep moving smoothly. And as they get warmer from use, as they fly down the track, that lubricant becomes less viscous, providing less resistance to motion. So you can see it could go one of 2 ways.
Yeah, I guess it comes down to kind of the positioning of the bearings within the wheels, and you know, whereabouts in the car they are, whether they're contained within a wheel structure, whether they're sort of open to the air, I guess, on the track. But interesting one to watch this, Nelson, as we go through the racing. Lawrence, I think you've got another thing just to point out, haven't you?
Yeah, so we noticed that Golden Motorsport, just not that far off on weight, but possibly having a few other tiny issues. I've picked up that they've got these stationary outer faces on their wheels, which is a great way of reducing turbulence. So essentially, the only part of the wheel that does need to move is that outer track that rotates. So by keeping that outer face stationary, you can reduce the turbulence at the side of the car. But I can see that there's a very low clearance there, which means if those bearings are starting to move a bit, they could be just getting a bit of friction where the wheels contact that stationary fixed face.
Ah, so it almost starts to act like a small sort of drum brake almost, and it just gives a bit of friction. Interesting. Great spot, Lawrence. I mean, we'll keep our eye on this, Nelson, as the racing progresses. But in the meantime, Nelson, back out onto the track. We are good to go. And across to you in the combox.
So, final race. Race number 4 between Pulsar and Golden Motorsport.
Come on, let's have a clean sweep.
And it's Pulsar with a 1.149 and Golden Motorsport with a 1.363.
Cracking stuff. And I believe, again, hearing from the track guys, not a single breakage through those entire races. So, yeah, I mean, 4 races, no issues. What a great performance, and 2 really well-built professional class cars, Nelson. So much for the glass class, my friend.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to rethink that one, won't we? Okay, Lawrence, I think we are ready to go to you for the last 2 cars on track today. So our final 2 teams in the professional class. What have you got for us?
Well, in the left lane we've got Imperium from Robert May's school, the school that is actually the reigning F1 in Schools world champions and national champions. Not going too modest on the name there, which stands for absolute power, but we'll have to see if they manage that on track today.
Very sporting of them.
They're right at the limit of the weight there, 50.2, just leaving that little margin that's sensible to make sure you don't get any failures. The wheelbase of these 2 cars are very similar, only 4mm different, but we can see the Hexa Racing car has this very, very thin body in the middle, almost extending the chamber with the minimum allowed wall thickness right to the front to a point. Now, I think this could be a really good design. It looks to have a low frontal area, but we just need to make sure that it's resilient and can finish all 4 races.
Oh yeah, I must admit, Nelson, when the Hexa car turned up, not only did we say, wow, what a strikingly beautiful design, but we also kind of went, that looks like it's got breakage written all over it, and I just hope that car has been designed sympathetically with the brushes in mind and the dimensions of the stopping system. So please, Hexa, come on, have thought that through. But yeah, I mean, they're pretty close on stats, aren't they? I guess, Lawrence, the weight is the big differentiator here, do you think, in performance terms?
I think so, but as we've seen, the heavier cars can actually get a bit of an advantage in that first sector of the track, where maybe it just helps ground them and reduce any pitch, so when the car dives into the track or does a bit of a wheelie. So I don't think everything's cut and dried yet.
Oh, love it. Love a bit of suspense. Right, Nelson, I think we're ready to head over to the track then, and just to see which of these cars can come out on top. So over to you, Nelson, and out to the track.
So race number 1, lane 1, Imperium, lane 2, Hexa Racing. So lights off. There was a clear advantage there for Imperium with
certainly. Wow.
Lightning 1.083.
There they are. Well, I mean, that is a really quick time. We have said it before that anything below 1.1 seconds in the Pro class is right up there. I mean, we've seen some times in the other regions. We have seen some quick cars that are going, I mean, this quick, even a little bit quicker in some cases, but it's going to be interesting to see if the Imperium car gradually warms up, as Lawrence was saying, the bearings start to lubricate and bed in, or if it goes the other way and we see that gradual decline in performance from peak, race 1 performance. Well, Nelson, I think that the guys out on track have done a remarkable job of getting the cars back to the start and preloaded with a fresh 21 degrees C CO2 cartridge for race number 2. So away we go.
Race number 2, still in the same lane. Cars looking great at the start.
And no breakages so far.
No breakages.
Go on, Hexa.
And we have it. That was fast again. With a 1.093 from Imperium and a 1.210 from Hexa Racing.
Okay, so interestingly there, the car's actually sort of swapping positions in performance term. The Imperium car just slightly slower. I mean, talking a 100th of a second slower. In fact, not even that. But the Hexa Racing car just starting to pick up a bit of speed and really very close at the split gates. Hexa just, 400ths of a second behind Imperium. So, of course, at this point, the guys are bringing the cars back off track. Nelson, we're not hearing anything in our ear from the guys out there that there's any problems at all. So Hexa Racing, you look like you've done a cracking job here of engineering what looked to us like a very risky design. You've actually pulled it off very well. So, a little bit of credit there deserved for Hexa Racing. So Nelson, I believe the guys out there are just putting the finishing touches to the car setup, and I think we are now ready to go back out there. So race number 3, Nelson, over to you.
Race number 3 with Hexa Racing now in lane 1 and in lane 2 Imperium. Lights off. There you go.
Really
that was
close,
close. And that was Imperium with a 1.091. Again, very consistent, very close to their last time, and a 1.171 for Hexa Racing.
Hexa, that is remarkable. I mean, you've just shaved almost a 10th off your time there. That's fantastic finish time. Imperium, again, really consistent now. It's like you say, just 0.02 of a second different from their last time, and actually marginally quicker. Maybe that's lane 2, maybe that's just the bearings stabilising, but really, 1.09, 1.08, we're talking about absolute fractional differences here. So 3 races down, of course 3 wins for Imperium, but Nelson, we know, and we've talked about this before, that the points are calculated on the race times and an average of those times as well. So Hexa Racing, this is still all to play for here, but Imperium putting in a really solid shout for those top racing points. Right, guys, I think we're ready to head back to the track, and this will be our final race of the London South Regional Finals. I know we've enjoyed this, but here we are. We've got one more race. Nelson, let's take us through it.
Come on. So, lane 1, Hexa Racing. Lane 2, Imperium. Lights on, lights off. There they go. And we have
a close finish.
Imperium with a 1.119 and a 1.171 for Hexa Racing.
Nelson, that is remarkable. Lawrence has just done the same thing. We both remarked at each other and went, oh, what? Because Lawrence, you spotted what I've spotted.
Hexa Racing have just set the exact same time twice in a row, I have to say. Very
Absolutely,
good job.
A little hand clap from us too. That is applause worthy. Well, Nelson, we've seen the times. Imperium not there managing to improve on their very best time, but of course we saw it. A 1.08 was their best time, and a properly quick time that is.
We can say that their car was perfect on the first race, but then he went up and up a little bit, so
potentially just a little bit of gradual wear coming in there, but to be expected. Right, Nelson, that brings us to an end of the professional class racing, so let's have a quick look at the leaderboard. And we see there, it is indeed Imperium sat on the top, but only fractionally, and we're talking 0.05 of a second clear of Pulsar there from St Olave's Grammar School. Hexa Racing with that brilliant time at the end there of 1.171, and really Golden Motorsport doing themselves absolutely no harm 1.248 is still within striking distance of the top there, and you do sense that, you know, with a little bit of extra development, all these cars could be really fighting for top spot there, Nels. Yeah, looking good. Well, we talked about it just briefly before. The final leaderboard, of course, involves all the teams. So let's have a look at where the Pro Class team stacked up next to the rest of the contenders. And there it is. So, of course, we know about the top 3, but they're Tectonic, putting in a massive effort from St Olave's Grammar School, coming 4th overall on the board. Actually, I mean, well, that's going to be awkward in the classroom. Gold Motorsport, you've been pipped to the post by your junior rivals there. Peregrine in 5th. Also from the Dev Class in Gordon's School there with a very respectable time, 1.245. I mean, look at the differences between the times now. 3 thousandths of a second between 5th and 6th there.
Really great.
Some super tight racing. Of course, that is the top 10. If we flick to the next page here, we can see the top. So 11 down to 19, and our top entry class team there. Fusion from St Joseph College, of course, 1.415, just on the tail end of Eclipse in Dev Class there. So really nice little progression between the times. Every team here really covering themselves in glory. Amazing work to be taking part in this event. And Nels, we sort of said it at the start. I think it's probably time just to recap and say it again, that these teams have done an extraordinary effort to get to these events in such a difficult time.
We're very grateful that our students were able to finish their work and to participate. We were one of the few STEM challenges still inactive during these troubled times. And I mean, we want our competition back and active and running, but our students have proved that overcoming obstacles is nothing for them. So they have submitted all of their work, excellent verbal presentations, amazing documents, and really fast cars.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Nelson. And I think we did it at the beginning. We should probably do it again just to celebrate the teams and give them a huge round of studio applause, shouldn't we? So well done again, everybody from London South. Congratulations on your extraordinary efforts this year. Of course, it's not just over just yet. The awards show is still to come. All the judges are adding in your points together, and we're calculating the winners of the awards. Our fastest car, best engineered car, all the star quality awards, of course, and crucially, the bit you really want to know about is who will be progressing to the 2021 UK National Finals. Well, that is all we've got time for here in the studio. Lawrence, has been brilliant having you here. Lawrence, thank you so much. We'll have you back in the studio next time. And Nelson Vale, thank you so much again for joining us here in the studio. Guys, tune in for the awards ceremony. But until then, it's goodbye from us. Thank you, and we'll see you very soon.
Bye.